Sauce.
Hey, you like Pez?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host Pez. I'm here with Sauce. We just had an amazing round 10 heading into round 11 of the AFL season. The ladder is starting to shape and take form. We do have a lot of separation with a battle for the bottom of the 8.
Not only the separation between the 8 pairs, there's been a lot of separation in the coaches box the last couple of weeks. It's been an interesting week if you're a coach, and probably two of the coaches that are no longer in the coaching realms for the next couple of weeks at least. Probably not the coaches that we thought would be talking about in round 10. So very interesting stuff.
Yeah, well, Dimmer calls it quits this week. And
so clever.
Oh, well, he's done. Brad Scott did it years and years ago when he was coaching North Melbourne, writing on the wall, I'm going to quit. But Dimmer's gone even earlier than that, I reckon, because he would have been safe until the end of this year, and then he probably would have walked away anyway if his team didn't make the finals. But for him to say, you know what, I'm a career coach, I'm going to walk away now. I'm going to be celebrated. Richmond fans are going to love me. It's going to be a really hard job for the next guy who comes in. And I'm just loving life. I can go to Essendon. I can go to Port Adelaide, where I've played and won premierships before. Or who wants me? What list is good? I'm going to try and win another flag at another club.
Yeah, it becomes the cream of the crop in terms of coaches because, as you said, Pez, he doesn't have to make a decision. He gets out on his terms. He's remembered. He's celebrated. He doesn't have to go through what Adam Simpson's copying every week about where's your club's at? What are you doing? This. He's like, hey, I'm going to retire. I'm going to call it on my own cards because I can see the writing on the wall. I'm not saying these obviously to the media, but I can see the writings on the wall. Let's celebrate my premierships. Let's celebrate me being a club legend. And all the highlights that have come out this week from him in the coaching box.
The halftime grand final speech.
It's amazing. But, it's not what you see, the week after a sacking, for example, is the
doom and gloom.
The doom and gloom, the black and white or the black and red sort of overlap on the footy shows where they go through the last couple of weeks.
White, yeah.
The people walking off the ground, head down. Instead, you get the celebration, the yellow and black streamers.
Yeah, and he's just handballed it off. That list is your problem now. Tom Lynch was injured anyway. Wasn't going to get anywhere.
Which is really funny because they obviously heavily recruited and he invested in the next 7 years of Richmond and he's left 10 weeks in.
With the Taranto and Hopper contracts and ruining a little bit there. They've got an ageing list, so it'll be interesting to see how they go if they do the rebuild and have a lot of senior players move clubs and chase premierships, or if they're going to try and do an internal rebuild and just try and top up and go from there. But the Essendon fans have called it because they've called, we're the coach killers. We've killed Damien Hardwick. This week we might travel over to West Coast. We might kill Adam Simpson in his career. And then whoever they play the week after, they might go 3 in a row.
They play North the week after that, so that'll be a little bit rough, wouldn't it?
The caretaker.
The caretaker. See you later. Dropping bombs.
Go from there. But it is very interesting. We had some amazing results. And speaking of Essendon, the Dreamtime result was probably the most amazing one with Richmond with a late lead. It was a low-scoring affair. And Essendon, in the last 20 seconds, a Durham mark in the goal square from a Jake Stringer snap, seals the game, 7 seconds left on the clock, and they got a 1-point lead and held on to win.
Yeah, broke the streak of 15 years of not been winning, and we flogged on about that last week. But 13-game losing streak that they'd had against Richmond at the G, and it was one of those games where it's interesting. We spoke about this beforehand, and it seemed like a lot of Essendon fans were leaving. I was at the pub with a couple of Essendon fans when they were down by 18 points in that last quarter, and they packed it up and left because they're fed up. They're fed up with the performance that they've been putting out, and it was inspirational for them to come back. A little bit of a collapse from Richmond's side, and some really odd decisions made in those dying minutes about, again, we speak about this, just kill the game, kill the footy, and they continued to make some interesting things and trying to get that.
Jack Rewalt toe poked straight to the opposition.
Just some weird things that happened there. But congratulations to Essendon, and they probably win another 2 games after this. 3-game win.
Going on about that.
No, but a 3-game winning streak is perfect for Essendon, and it probably will set them up for a top 8 battle towards the end of the year.
In all honesty, I had the 2 screens going, so had the Brisbane game on at the same time. But Essendon just looked a lot sharper during the whole game. I know they didn't have the lead early on, but they did look the better side, and Richmond just had bursts, which they usually do. So Essendon, they've still got different players around where they don't have a strong forward line, and Merritt dominated in the middle, but they didn't have anything up forward to continue to go. They've got a lot of injuries as well on their list, Essendon, so they did well to come away with the points, and their fans are chirping again. They're up and about, and like last week it was doom and gloom. We're not going to make the 8. We're down in the dumps, and now it's like, oh, we've got the best run ever. We're going to make the 8. So it's the Essendon roller coaster.
The emotional roller coaster of not only being an Essendon fan, but just a footy fan in general. The week to week heartache as well as the week to week celebration. But we jumped straight to the Dreamtime game, but we forgot about one of the dream runs that Zach Butters had on Friday night. An absolute stellar performance in a 4-point win at home against Melbourne, or the renamed during the Indigenous round, Sir Doug Nicholls round, Narram. So what a game this was.
Now this was a contest, because in the first half you saw even the players were saying after the game, we weren't expecting rain to come.
Yeah.
So the rain looked pretty heavy on TV, and in that first half scoring was a little bit hard to come by. But in that third quarter, Melbourne kicked 7 goals. And Port Adelaide piled on 3 themselves. And in the last quarter, Port Adelaide 3 goals to 1, which got them over the line. A 4-point thriller, high-scoring second half in the wet. And Ken Hinkley just continues to coach really, really well. And Melbourne, 17 points up. Brodie Grundy gives the shush to the crowd. And don't do that if you have a chance to lose, because that becomes embarrassing.
Could you imagine if that was a little bit later on and right the next play, bang, goal, turnover after the siren sort of win? Adelaide would have rioted and they would have gone after him. But it was a fantastic contest, and not only fantastic on the obviously the footy talent, but not often we talk about this. The jerseys that they were rocking, both teams, the colours out there with the rain going down, the ground looked in, absolutely amazing form, and that light blue on the Narram jersey and the Port Adelaide the green really popping off there was really, really good.
Yeah, it was nice. And Lysette did his job, came back in. We spoke about it last week.
We spoke about the ruck contest, yeah.
He did a very good job to even that out a little bit. And Ollie Lord kicked a couple of goals as well. And Dixon, I know, is out at the moment of the team, but their forward line actually looks decent without Charlie Dixon, because he's a real focal point usually, and usually beats up on the shitter clubs down the bottom of the ladder. But against the better clubs, he seems to go missing a bit.
If they could work out how to utilise him to take out the number 1 defender while still having a functioning forward line like they did on Friday night, they would be really, really tough going into September, because he has to take up that number 1 defender. But you are right, they're a little bit one-dimensional when he's in there, and they just seem to bomb it and go to him. And he's great when he's beaten up on the younger blokes or the less talented back lines. But, the way that it was functioning on Friday night was much more the direction I think that they would want to be aiming for.
Yeah, earlier in the year, I do have to mention this, Will Ashcroft is one of my favourite players, but Jason Horne-Francis and the month that he's put together, He's just a gem to watch. He's clean. His disposal is great. He's an amazing field kick, and he even had a shot for goal on the weekend that sailed through. And I just think he's getting better and better. And outside noise, power, they're coming.
They really are coming, and we'll talk about this later on in the show, but they've got a nice little winning streak going, and especially after early calls for Hinkley's job. But anyway, there'll be some more calls for some people's jobs possibly on the Sydney North game. And I think what summed up the absolute dismal performance this was Buddy Franklin's celebration when the free kick was banned, the double fist pump. Threw his hands up in the air.
He did it about 6 times.
Yeah, because they know how desperate they were for a win, because they couldn't afford to lose to North Melbourne, and they should have lost to North Melbourne after a bizarre substitute, too many players on the field error, resulting in the old radio from the umpire. It was interesting scenes. I was at a beer festival on the weekend, and we were watching the game on the screen, and no one could work out what was happening.
No. And the footage, when you watch it back, they didn't really show it or talk about it in a timely manner. So they did go off. I always thought that there was an AFL person that counted the interchanges for both teams, and I just assumed that they'd let the team know, like, hey, you're capped here, you're at 75. Maybe North Melbourne just go, you know what, this is a good way to tank. We'll just chuck the interchange on, do the 76. But the interesting thing is they did the 77th as well because he went back on. Shields went back on.
What, you want a double penalty?
Well, no, I'm not saying I don't know.
Imagine the uproar. Not only for that, but then back-to-back 50s.
I honestly don't know the rule. Was it like he's come on as a 76 sub, so you actually have to take him back off?
Well, he's not allowed to be subbed on. So, I don't know. That's a good point.
Like a reversal. That's what I thought it might have been, but there was a few people talking about the 77th sub. But I'm not clear on the rules. I don't really care because I don't think you're going to see this again. But can you imagine the uproar of a final if that was to happen for a club and to go there? It's North Melbourne, so it's kind of expected in the end, isn't it?
A little while away about worrying about them losing games in finals. But speaking of teams losing games, not in finals, but in Mars Stadium. And we spoke about it last week, the Western Bulldogs, they took on Adelaide. And I definitely had a read in this one completely wrong. But the Western Bulldogs look pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's day and night. I think this is the biggest difference between a club playing at their home ground and playing away. They should have lost to Hawthorn down in Tasmania, the Crows, where they were down and came back. They got beat up by the Bulldogs. It was a non-contest. And they've had a couple of other away games where they just haven't looked too great, but they look really good at Adelaide Oval. So they need to get a move along and get some more wins under the belt and see what they can do when they jump on a plane.
Yeah, not to undershadow the doggies who, I still don't have much belief in, but they looked quite impressive. But as you said, night and day between the Crows home and away, and there's probably not much else to report there. Western Bulldogs basically pretty routine, went down there, got the job done, heaps of the pill for a range of players. Bailey Smith, he looked good injecting into that midfield. Yeah,
and their midfield was very strong and won them the game easily. 11-19 they kicked. That game, that could have been a near on 80 point win, but they ended up with a 45-point win and go from there. And then Wally up over in Geelong, over at SBS Stadium, gave Geelong a bit of a towel up, 5 goals.
They did, and I'm sure you heard about it from Chris Scott, who complained about the amount of injuries they had. And but the disappointing thing is that you can see the difference between Geelong when they've got their, obviously, premiership side in, and not one player got over 20 disposals. So pretty disappointing.
That's
at one stage, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, I think it was Holmes, led Geelong's disposal count at 3. At about the 9-minute mark of the first quarter.
Geez, you've got to be kidding me. That's the most amazing stat, isn't it? That no one got 20. So if you had a same game multi in this and you put any player for Geelong to get 20, you're done. It was a same game multi killer.
Imagine if you had all of the players for their under disposals, you would have cleaned up. But we spoke about this, and then I'm digging a little bit into the betting inside. But we've spoken about this about Geelong all year. Is that they're a team that don't consume a lot of the pill. There's 1 or 2 players that get the 20 and the 25, and if you can pick those players, depending on the matchup, then you're loving life. But otherwise, they're unreliable in terms of disposals. But
look at the ones that are usually reliable. Tom Stewart, he had 17. People usually have him for 20 and sometimes a little bit of a risk at 25.
Exactly right. But we know we're not talking about the bigger story, and Fremantle, not snapping back into form because the Geelong haven't been very impressive, but a win that Fremantle definitely needed at home. The odds were against them, and coming against the reigning premier, you beat them the next year, you got to take that as a win under your belt.
Yeah, well, Fremantle have changed up their game style and their ball movement, which is
starting to look a lot better.
Higher scoring teams. So they get to test themselves this week at the MCG against Melbourne, who need to bounce back after their loss to Port Adelaide. So it'll be interesting to see if Fremantle can actually bring it and score heavily as well. They've scored over 100 points a few times in the last month now, so very good from them. Brisbane had a little bit of a scare. It was 68-63 at one stage, and it ended 107-64.
Yeah, it was that last quarter. That last quarter just blew them away, and as you said, they looked pretty much I would say they looked in control for most of the game.
It didn't seem like it was in danger, no.
No, even when they were down, in that first quarter, and it was, a little bit of a low-scoring first quarter, hard to get going, but they always looked in control, and it's what Brisbane need to do is they need to have those wins where they're challenged a little bit, and they, as you said last week on the show, that sometimes they can just let those ones slip away. The ones that they should win, cruise control, haven't had a great night, and they let it slip away. They played 10 minutes of great footy in that fourth quarter, blew it open, and they go from a 2-goal game to a 43-point win, and that's impressive, and one of the reasons that I still have them as the premiership favourite.
Yeah, you'd 43 points in the end, 4 goals to Joe Danaher, and he's looked really good since the early criticism in the season. Cameron kicked 2, Hipwood kicked 2, McCarthy kicked 2. They're just midfield disposals. They were all over it. It's just when they were defending, Gold Coast were just able to get the ball in really good spots and kick some good set shots through King. He had 3 himself and Lukosius another 2. So Gold Coast, they just can't put 4 quarters together. They do put bits and pieces together, but their defence really struggles.
They do really struggle. Speaking about really struggles, West Coast, they really struggle to even score, let alone...
Yeah.
Well, we spoke about it last week about how you just jump all over West Coast anytime... Hawthorn or their opposition, and wow, Hawthorn... you can guarantee that they won't win any more games for the rest of the year because they had all of their Christmases come at once in a 120-point win against West Coast. 116, sorry. But
yeah, it's really disappointing if you are a West Coast fan and their drop off. I know they've got injuries and things like that, but to score 4 goals 2.
They didn't look like they were going to score 4 goals.
It was didn't look like tough. They kicked the first goal of the game as well, and they were up and about there down in Tasmania. And Hawthorn, a little bit sluggish to start, but to let 22 goals go down the other end is quite embarrassing. You've got the players there to at least compete or at least defend, do something, but. 116 points, that's 200-point losses now to West Coast. And, Adam Simpson might just need to go, you know what, I've won 3 in the last 36. Might be time to step away and save my coaching credentials a little bit if I want to do it.
Going into the last 2 years, his coaching percentage would have been amazing. Had a premiership, looking pretty good. And the last 2 years have just absolutely slumped it. But you said about them setting the tone, and they looked like they looked really good in the first maybe 30 seconds, minute 20, and then they went on for that rest of that first quarter. And I actually looked at the stat mid game, and it was a 19-5 inside 50s in the first quarter. That's disgusting, and they are really struggling to show any signs of life. And as you said, it's disappointing for the West Coast fans. It's disappointing for the West Coast club, who at the start of the year, even last year, they were talking about competing, and even still this year hadn't properly lent into it. This is a huge setback, and you think that North Melbourne previously have been at the bottom for a while. If they don't get this right, they could be down there for a significant time, which is... not the worst thing. So since 93 when they came in, or 91 when they came in, they haven't really spent a long time down the bottom. But this is a disaster for the franchise.
No, and they've created premierships in different eras as well.
All eras,
in all decades. So Tim Kelly is probably a shining light, and Dom Sheed was actually really good with 2 goals and 30 disposals. But I do need to mention Andrew Gaff and his downfall and what's happened to him. He had 10 disposal Sauce, and he was a lock for 30 a few years ago on the wing over at Optus Stadium. I know this was down in Tasmania, but they weren't getting him the ball. They weren't using him because they're under so much pressure, and they're not using their outside run because they can't win the footy.
They can't win it at all. And, he used to sort of get a couple of cheapies at the back while they're setting up, but you're right, they just can't get the footy, and the ball is coming in that quickly to that forward line that there's no opportunity for him at all. So disappointing for him, and a West Coast legend basically in the things he's done for the club. But speaking of legends, we had a legendary matchup in Carlton versus Collingwood, and a massive crowd there were just left absolutely disappointed. There was talk about this, and I spoke about this, where Carlton, if this is a real opportunity to start to prove themselves. They'd lost 4 of the last 5 coming into this one, and except take West Coast out, and they should be 6 out of 6 losses. That's disgusting.
Over in the first quarter as well, and a comfortable
first 5 minutes.
Comfortable 28-point win to Collingwood. They just did what they needed to do to win the game. Darcy Moore just killed it in the half back line and just got uncontested mark, interception after interception.
6 in the first quarter. 6 in the first quarter.
How can you not change
Was
something
he wearing the
or
wrong
do
jersey?
something?
It's horrible.
It's not like it's a clash. You can actually tell. So what I have noticed with Carlton is look at the top 3 disposal getters from the game. Doherty had 34. Chera in the midfield had 33 and Walsh had 29. They overpossess the footy.
Just do something.
They overpossess it. They need to get some run going, run the other way, and lower the eyes and go to someone, because Carlton got a few goals off free kicks as well, and Curnow getting held, and it's not going to happen all the time. You can't rely on that. You need to get some better entries into that forward 50 and use your forward line and change up the structure. So I don't know what's happening down at Carlton.
Nothing's happening at all.
it's the coach's box. I'd love to be a fly on the wall and just hear like what's going on. Is Voss just sitting there going, "Oh yeah, we're winning the footy. We're winning the footy out of the middle."
That can't be like one. I mean,
What are you doing?
If you look at Collingwood the last couple of years, if you play Collingwood, you still get a lot of the footy. They still allow you to get, those main midfielders to get the footy. But you got to do something with it. What is the game plan that, if you look at different clubs, we talked earlier about what Fremantle are trying to do. We talked about earlier what last couple of shows about what St Kilda are trying to do. What do Carlton do in their game style? Well, what's their game style? They don't have one. Like what is it? Hope the two best forwards get the pill. Is that all it is?
They chip it around until they can, bomb it into a contest.
But exactly right. They chip it around until they can bomb it. Well, that makes no sense at all. If you're chipping around, you're trying to make for a good lead or a one-on-one contest or something instead of.
If you're coaching Carlton this week, you're saying you get the ball out of the middle and everyone's running forward.
Just run.
Handball the footy and find an open man inside that forward 50. And that forward structure just needs to change where, I don't know, the half forwards need to play higher. Mackay or Curnow definitely need to play, 70 or 80 metres out and just leave one of them down there. Don't have both of them going up into those contests where there's just a big pack and Collingwood able to kill the ball really easily. So that's it for Carlton. We'll see what happens this week. Big Friday night game.
Huge Friday night game.
GWS and St Kilda was a great contest, and St Kilda ended up winning by 2 goals in the end. GWS couldn't get enough score on the board, but it was competitive.
It was what St Kilda needed. They needed one of those hard type sort of victories. Very hard fought for most of the game. The Giants wouldn't go away, and it was good because the Saints. A lot of people were starting to feel that they were slipping, and that their dream start at the start of the year had come to an end. But winning by 13 points against a pretty gallant sort of GWS with a couple of impressive ins that they had this week, which have gone straight back out, and big stuff from the Saints and your man King.
The King is back, isn't he? It's 4 goals. It actually was good to see. They had him as a target, and he was able to be in some scoring chains as well when he gets the ball up the ground. So I'm looking forward to see how that forward line structures a little bit more, because they got Membry back about a month ago, and then he's gone out of the side and King's come in, and King is a much better option at the moment. And if he can just clunk him and be clean with that footy and kick straight like he did, kick 4-1, that'll be good. But on Brownlow night, it'll be Jay Sinclair, 3 votes.
You wrote that down in your notes finally after round 11.
Yeah, definitely. I've got one. He'll probably be paying $1.10 or something for 3 votes.
Everyone else saw that. But you're right. It's really exciting for St Kilda, considering they've got those defensive structures locked down, to have a consistent forward like King to be able to make good contest. And he's such a strong lead for the footy. He's powerful. He's strong. He's upper body. He's a magnificent looking bloke. He's got a good little bod on him.
He's getting bigger.
He's looking good. So despite missing some time, Pez must be not missing the gym sessions.
Well, what else are you going to do in recovery? But he did do a shoulder, so he's got that shoulder strapped. But
it looks good.
Yeah, if he's stronger, let's get him up and about. That consumes round 10. Let's see how we went in our bets.
Soft review. It's no official review. How does it end? We don't know. They've kind of lost, but they've won as well.
That's an unusual thing. We're not laughing about our bets from the weekend halfway through the intro. I thought Pez was showing a sneaky nipple, but he's got the King's shirt on.
The King is back.
The King is back.
The King is back. The shirt's out. We're ready to go.
Give us a look at that shirt again. What's the image that they've got? One of the... I thought...
Little cartoon, the King.
Get on with it.
An older shirt of mine, but
it does look like it's been through a couple of washes, that one.
It's been through a couple this week because I've wanted it all week. But
making great podcasting again, just laughing about the audio. But let's get into round 10.
Yeah, round 10. So I ended up staking 8 units and had 8 units at risk, and was able to return 5.75 units this week. So took advantage of round 10 and what I liked, and it takes me for the season to 7.92 units of profit. So we're nearly getting up to that 1 unit per round average. So after the shocking start with a couple of big swings, you just focus on the long game, and consistency is key, and continue and add a nice profit. So a couple of reasons why I had the Port Adelaide Melbourne, and I've just gone the the plus for both teams and the middle of the over-under, and I was really nervous about it at one stage. It was about 131 live, and it ended up sailing through and getting over because it was heavy scoring in that second half. So started off with a win there. The Bulldogs Adelaide, now I need to speak about this one because I was sure it was going to be under, and that was probably the bet of the round for anyone that had that as a single. But I had the Bulldogs under 85.5 Sauce. They're sitting at 73 at three-quarter time. And I'm just going, oh no. And somehow they only kicked 2 straight in the last and held off and just won on the hook there, the 2-unit get. So that was a great one to get.
It would have been a great one to get, and I wish I'd jumped on that one in that game instead of the misread that I had. But before round 10, I still staked 6 units, still returned 2.36. So lucky I got one of my bonuses, and I probably should have loaded up in that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But for the season, staked 68 and returned 17.75. As you said last week, just continually build 2 by 2 by 2. If I do that for the rest of the year, that's another 20 units. I'll be sitting about 37, and that's
You've been loving that. Nearly matching last year, which was an amazing year.
Exactly right. And one of the, sorry to interrupt, but like one of the reasons that I did that is because I spoke so heavily about Port Adelaide, which was a little bit of a sweat there, but Dan Houston to get 20, that was sitting incredibly at $1.40. He ended up with 33.
Yeah, we spoke about that last
Port Adelaide, the plus 37.5. And I think what you've got to remember when you're looking at your bets is not just look about what they've done for the last month. As you said, there was a reason that he was sitting at that time because they thought there was going to be Melbourne win. They thought there was going to be some attention there. Melbourne give away a heap of the footy to certain teams. Boom. They had 4 or 5 players. We talked about Butters getting over. That's what you got to load up on.
You said that style. And there was a question on TikTok for you, Sauce, about Port Adelaide ML, and you took Port Adelaide plus 37.5, and the reason why. Now, the loyal listeners will know, but we'll just explain that one more time. If Port Adelaide had lost that game and Melbourne, kicked a late goal and they lost by 2, you would have walked away with a bonus bet because Dan Houston 20 plus and Port Adelaide wouldn't have lost by 38 or more. So that's the reason you put it in there, make the 3 legs and get that insurance.
Especially when you've got a team that is considered the outsider. If you can get some value in your money line as it is, so that's where the $2 something boosted up my bet. And then realistically, if I think the team's going to win, well, then they're going to cover the plus. So it's a free leg, it's a free hit, and even if they were to lose, that's not a big deal because you've got that extra insurance. So it's a good way to do it. It's a strategy that we've used for a couple of years now. We've done it the same sort of thing with the over as well. If you take the general over, then you bump up the under, for example, hit the middle. So a range of different ways to do it. But the other one I want to talk about is the plus 40.5 with West Coast. I just had that as a bonus bet. I should have jumped all over it. I should have been as trusting in my advice. And I'm going to speak a little bit later about what I've done in this one, but I should have hit this multitude of different ways. I should have gone the 50, the 60, the 70, the 100.
Hawthorn 40 plus, 296. And I actually looked at it before the game. I'm not claiming anything. I wasn't going to place the bet. But either team on Bet365 to win by 100 plus was paying $29 pre-bounce.
Wow. So if you look at, that's any team to cover, so that opens up the odds. You'd say Hawthorn probably would have been higher odds?
Oh, yeah, not by much because West Coast are not going to win by 100 plus.
$30, chuck 10 on that. That's 300. You're absolutely laughing. But
I wouldn't recommend that bet in the long run. It's just very rare.
Every game this week, $10 on there. What agency is that? Either team to win by 100?
Yeah, it's Bet365 under their market there. Okay. I do need to speak about my same game multi with Tab. I had Cameron for 3 plus goals. Brisbane minus 8.5, over 150.5. Ended up with a bonus because Cameron ended up with 2-1. He hit the post in the first quarter. But when I looked at him hit the post in the first quarter, on Instagram, I put out on the story Sauce, Charlie Cameron, anytime goal scorer in the second quarter. I wasn't going to, but it was $2.50. And I thought that was great odds. I was like, yep, chuck out a unit on that. And then in the second quarter as well, after Cameron kicked his goal, because he kicked the first goal of the second quarter, I was like, yep, all right, Brisbane are covering this line. It's better than the 24.5 line that you would have afterwards. So another one on that. And it was nervy in that third quarter, but they sailed away with it.
Good. Those live bets or anytime goal scorer, at any quarter. We talked about this with the Cameron bet earlier in the year, the goal by goal by goal by goal. Great bets to watch. So good. You're so much more invested. It's a little bit more fun.
It's probably not profitable long term.
Probably not responsible either, but it's a lot of fun.
No, but it is. And thinking, I thought he was going to get 3 goals at the start. He hasn't got any at quarter time. He's been lively. That was my,
I mean, if you
talking of
unpack the value of it, if he hasn't kicked a goal, for example, up into the second quarter, at the start of the game, anytime goal scorer, he's sitting about $1.06. So if he hasn't kicked one, your odds are still in your favour in terms of the percentage that he was probably kicked. So if you look at it like that, 250 is absolute value.
Yep.
But obviously, once the first quarter's there and you look at how it's unplayed, you probably can look at, is there a tag? Has there been a good matchup? But a lot of value to be had if you, as well as a little bit of fun.
Yeah, great fun. So we end round 10 in the profit like we always seem to be, Sauce. And
standard for me.
What are we going to see in round 11?
The fact that the size of the bets was relatively small.
Now Bex with an opportunity about 50 metres out.
I was with a mate and we were getting sort of ready to leave, and he said, I think I'm going to whack 10 on Maxi. Do you want some as well? And I said,
Oh yes!
From wins straight into the specials.
Cyril takes a special and goes bang.
Yep, so still no sports bet special,
So
unfortunately.
no segment. Straight on to the next one.
Neds have 12 up at halftime for the Friday night clash of Sydney versus Carlton, up to $250. And Bluebet actually have the 12 up special for every game this week, up to $100 profit. So you can work that out of what that is. Lads have the one leg fails in a 3+ leg same game multi. Bonus back up to $50, one per day. And I didn't see the one on tab yet when I screenshotted earlier. I'm just going to double check if it's come through, because they usually do 3+ leg same game multi, any leg fails, bonus bet back up to $50 all games. There you go. That would have helped me when I was doing my bet slip before, but they've bought it out finally.
They have brought it out finally. Well, that's let's get straight into it and start off things with the Sydney versus Carlton game. What are you laughing at?
This game,
yeah, I know. $2, 3 outsiders, and the bookies don't know what they're doing here at all, Pez, because Sydney have fluctuated right throughout the week, being $2, $1.80, $3, not $3, sorry, $2. But they sit at $2.03 at the moment when we're recording, $1.78 for Carlton, -2.5 is the line, over under 165.5. I'm not talking about Carlton at all, because we spoke last week about how if they didn't win, they were dead to me, so it's all over to you.
Yeah, all over to me, and we spoke about it at them in the start of the show there about how Carlton are playing and they don't have a game plan. What is Sydney doing? Are they going to be able to put together 4 quarters and kind of get the win? Because you look at their seasons, and Sydney have had 4 wins, and they've come against below 13th on the ladder. Gold Coast Suns, Hawthorn, Richmond and North Melbourne on the weekend by 3 points from an interchange. But Carlton are much better. They drew Richmond first up, and people probably gave them more credit for that because we didn't know that Richmond were going to be quite poor this year. They beat Geelong early on in the second round, but then the other wins have come against GWS, North Melbourne and West Coast. So Carlton haven't shown much this year. They've been struggling. They are under the pump. And I want to mention that talkback caller who called up with a bit of passion, put him in the coach's box, because he's saying, I don't care if you don't want to play for the coach or you don't want to play for this. Play for the club. Play for the jumper. Play for the
emblem.
Play for the emblem. How good was that call? Play for the emblem. The passion in his voice really pumped me up. And with a 12 up promo, I'm going, yep, let's go. Might as well chuck something down. I'm just going Ned's 12 up promo. Carlton, ML, $1.85. Jumped on that. We'll just see how we go against Sydney. If I can get a little bit of 12 up there, I'll take that. I could flip a coin and go either side, couldn't you? We're being away, but let's just flip a coin and do that.
Flip a coin and do that. I love that, Pets. I think that Carlton over the last month, whilst everyone is talking about how bad a form they've been, they've hit teams that have been in reasonably good form. They hit St Kilda, obviously, when they were still up and about and playing some decent sort of football. They played Adelaide during the gather rounds. You wouldn't expect that sort of a beating. Brisbane up and about. Western Bulldogs last week, they're up and about. Collingwood, top team in the league. So, I think it's a bit misconceived about how they are actually playing. And I think that Carlton are actually playing a lot better form than Sydney. Sydney last week really struggled against North Melbourne, and a dodgy sort of free kick would point to probably a North Melbourne win, and we'd have a different story, probably a different coach sacked. And they haven't been in great form. They lost obviously against GWS. They lost against Fremantle. So I mean, all the odds point to Carlton. but they're dead to me. So we're all over Sydney. So I'm going Sydney straight up head to head with a 3-leg same game multi. Sydney money line, easy money because Carlton are trash. Let's be clear about that. They're trash. Right, Ollie Florent to get 15 or more disposals. His disposals have spiked the last 2 weeks since Mills is out. He's only missed it twice this year. Rack that in all your multis at $1.10. And the other one, my man, love the way this guy plays footy. Errol Goulding, last week he had 24, so the value increases a little bit for him to get 25 or more. He's only missed it once over the last 5, and that was last week at 24. So that's spiked his value. Thank you very much. 2 units, $3. Thank me later.
You are not confident in that.
Not at all. I don't like that bet at all. But do you know
stretch.
what? I'm proving a point. Proving a
Stretch the
point.
imagination. Screw Carlton. So just something for the Friday night and something for the TikTok out there, because Friday night's a very popular, very popular game to get some views.
One thing I am very confident. Are you done talking about that one? Is this next game?
I'm not.
You're not?
Because
Another bet.
I had a tab bonus that I forgot about from last week that I didn't place.
Just going to hedge your bets and put it on Sydney.
No, I've just gone the halftime, full-time double at tab with the bonus. Halftime Carlton 13 plus, full-time Carlton 25 plus at 450.
Say it again, sorry.
Carlton 13 plus at halftime.
Yeah.
Carlton 25 plus at the end of the game.
Oh, it's going to give you 2 opportunities to be disappointed in Carlton. So
450. If Carlton are 12 up and I don't win that first bet, could lose both of them. So, but one's a bonus, and I'll just play that. I was very rushed to get that one in. So
he might be like Michael Voss in his game planning, very rushed because there doesn't seem to be much of that. But very confident about the next game, St Kilda versus Hawthorn. I love this matchup. $1.20 favourites are the Saints, and $4.40 outsiders. A little bit odd that a team comes off a 116-point victory.
Yeah, when's the last time that happened?
$4.40. But minus 25 as 27.5 is the line. Over under 157.5.
Yeah, it keeps coming in because pre-show, which wasn't too long ago, St Kilda were around $1.24, coming to $1.20 there. But I've just gone a lad same game multi, and that's the one I'm going to use for the day to try and get that bonus back if I need it. I'm going to go Bradley Hill 15 plus because they seem to be using him. He's paying $1.11. And we're just going to, pop him in our multi there. I think this game, over 157.5 is where I'm going. And the reason being is not because Hawthorn scored 142 last week, but because St Kilda actually have a forward target now. So when they went forward last week, they actually looked a lot better because they could get it to King 70 metres out, and then he turns, and their forward line's still structuring down there with Jack Higgins behind him. He's taken marks inside 450. So I just think that structure's around a little bit better. So I'm going over 157.5, and that's the normal line there, Sauce. And then just added St Kilda to win in there, and that's $2.52 all up. So I'll take that with the little lads same game multi special.
I don't love that.
That's all right.
I like the St Kilda win. I'm actually a little bit more intrigued about your over bet if you don't mind me unpacking it. Is it just the forward line presence that you're going the up, or like the style of gameplay that Hawthorn have indicated against some of these sides as well as St Kilda is that when they want to turn it into a bit of a scrap, they obviously, you look at a GWS game and they try and smother the ball under 9 sort of football. So I'm a bit intrigued about how you think it's just going to go over. Or
just I think the ground makes it really in favour of that as well with St Kilda. And in the last month, St Kilda haven't really been trying to slow down the game as much. They've actually been, when they intercept the ball, they've been trying to attack. So Wanganeen, Malira and Bradley Hill, they've been trying to find them and really trying to attack and get through that. And with that forward presence there, I just think they can break apart that Hawthorn defence really well and get that ball in there. And it's 80 points each, or it's 100 to 60, something like that. So yeah, just go on the over.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you get that from a fan insight rather than sticking to the stats, and obviously you watch them a lot closely than other AFL bettors because you are a St Kilda supporter, and having that forward presence there makes sense. I just a little bit interested in you. When I did my data analysis,
what's your number on?
It's pretty low. It's pretty low.
Hey, and it could be. This is the best thing about
I have
punting.
I have it about under 146, Pez. So.
146. There we go.
There we go. But I'm not going with that. I'm sticking to the trend I am betting against St Kilda. They give away 30 more disposals to oppositions. The AFL average is 364. They're averaging about 392, and that doesn't matter about whether they win or lose. They give away a heap of the pill. So I'm sticking to normally with other sides, you can sort of pick out what position players they give it away to. St Kilda give it away to everyone except for forwards.
Everyone.
Everyone.
That's where the defending.
Exactly right. So, you see a real increase in the wing players, but specifically the mid. So, I've just picked 2 out of the 3. I don't mind a third bloke who I'll talk about later, and you probably could get some separate odds for that in terms of 25 plus or 30 plus. But I've gone with Sicily to get 30 or more. He's done it twice this year against Essendon and West Coast, and then on the ladder, they're number 2 and 4th in terms of giving away disposal. So, the trend sort of indicates that. You can get a nice little price there as well. And then I've gone for Warple for 25 plus. He's done it 5 out of the last 6. And again, St Kilda give away a heap of players. Put St Kilda in there to win. That gives me odds of $4.70. And I've put 2 units on it. The other player that I like is Will Day. So I reckon you get Will Day at about $1.50 at the moment for 25. And my metrics put it at him, he should be sitting about $1.30, but because they think that St Kilda is going to win and contest the game, the bookies haven't crunched it yet. So I'll probably be looking at putting out another multi, or even just all those in singles and sort of cover my my potential loss there, or my not my loss, my investment. But I love that 2 units, $4.70.
Yeah, just to back you up on that Sicily point, I was on him last week because he's one of the main kicking mans as well. And he took 2 out of 2 kickings last week, and there was only 2 because there's only 2 behind. So there'll probably be a few more this week, hopefully. And
hopefully not. Hopefully for you, there's a lot of goals, because otherwise it's going well under.
Yeah, well, you need behinds if he's going to get 30, but they are going to do that chip along the back line and see what happens there. So we move on to Melbourne and Fremantle at the G.
We do, and it's Sir Doug Nicholls' round is over the 2 rounds, so both teams can sort of have an opportunity to showcase their jerseys and let the crowds indulge in the culture. So we've got now again pronunciations I suck at the best of times. So we've got Nam and we've got Wally Up. So $1.37 is Nam of Melbourne, of course, and Wally Up Fremantle $3, 2 juicy odds after coming off an impressive victory over the reigning premiers. Minus 18.5 is the line. Over under 169.5.
Yeah, this is really interesting for me because Fremantle, at the MCG, they were winning a couple when they, were competing for premierships when they were in that grand final, but struggling to travel away from home and have struggled in multiple quarters. So I think Melbourne can bounce back in this game, but Melbourne haven't been one to really flog a side. They did flog Hawthorn early and ended up winning by it was only maybe 50-odd points or something like that. So I think Fremantle are a lot better than Hawthorn, obviously, and their game style will show that. But even if Melbourne get towards an early lead, they have shown that they get pegged back and they can win by that 24-point margin a lot. So I've just gone straight up at tab, $2.20. That's where I found the best odds. Melbourne 1-39.
I'm stuck on this one because I think with Oliver going out, he doesn't miss many games of footy. I would normally be backing Melbourne pretty heavily, but the $1.37 I think is good odds. Fremantle $3 It's I believe Fremantle actually are not that good, and they've come up against oppositions at really poor times. So last week, obviously you're travelling Geelong at home. They've knocked off the reigning premiers, but realistically, Fremantle haven't really showed anything that impressive. They won against Sydney the week before. That was impressive, but again, we spoke about the first game of the round and we didn't know who to tip in a Sydney versus Carlton game because Sydney have been equally as bad as Carlton. So I'm steering clear of this one. I probably like your 1-39 there, Pez. I also don't mind probably the 18.5. I think that's a little bit low. That started at 22 at the start of the week and the bookies have crunched that in. So yeah. I'm leaving that game, but 18.5 or the 1-39, I don't mind that either.
I was just tossing up between those two, the line or that. But Melbourne with the line, you can't seem to trust them because, as I said, they can get pegged back and get a little bit comfortable in themselves there. So 1-39, we'll see how we go. It's $2 at other bookies, so $2.20 there at tab.
All right, we head over to Alphabet Stadium, Geelong taking on GWS. $1.10 favourites are the Cats after a pretty lackluster performance last week. $7 outsiders GWS, pegged with a couple of injuries. Minus 41.5 is a huge line, I think. Over 174.5. I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts about this one, Pez.
Yeah, well, $1.10. They are playing at Alphabet Stadium, so that will give them the massive advantage. GWS, with Kelly doing that hamstring and going out, he's been a really big part of that GWS midfield and going forward. So it's very hard to, make a case for GWS, but it's also very hard to make a case to go either way on the line, because you think form this year, they flog poor teams away, especially interstate teams like Sydney. They flogged by 90 points that night a few rounds ago. So if I had to lean one, I'd lean the minus, and because where I was looking at goal scorers and 2 or more, 3 or more, Hawkins, Cameron, Stengel, things like that. And the value's just not there for me. So the under $2 for 3+ goals is Hawkins and Cameron, and Stengel's at 220 to kick 3. And I think it's just too risky to go, and the value's not there, so I'm staying away from it.
You're right. There's no value in this game. The line at 41.5 for GWS, the plus, looks extremely enticing if they're showing the same team that was there last week. They get a couple of injuries there. We're doing this before the teams are announced, so you're not sure who's going to be in there. But I'd be all over the plus line. Only twice this year has Geelong actually covered the line. Despite them having 5 wins, they've only covered it twice. They didn't even cover it against West Coast. As you said, they covered it against Sydney in a 90-point flogging, and they did it against Hawthorn.
Well, it depends when you jumped on the line. They didn't cover the closing line against West Coast, but they covered the early line.
Okay. Actually, yeah, but so the closing line's what all the stats are based off, so that's what I'm going
I'd imagine so.
But I do like that you've brought that up, because it's going to be a theme later on to one of my bets, the opening and closing lines. But I'd be leaning probably towards the plus 41.5. No teams out for me, no value in the initial looking of odds, so I'm going to steer clear. And another week that I don't back the Cats, and I made a good call because they're not winning. So
you've done well to stay away from them this year. They've been my kryptonite with costing me multitude.
Take a leaf out of my book.
Multitude of units there. The Cats against poor opposition.
All right, speaking of value, and there was no value in the last one, I think there's a heap of value in this one. 258 value, I believe, are the Gold Coast Suns taking on Western Bulldogs. Be very mindful of this game. It's actually not played up in the Gold Coast. It's played at TO Stadium, and Gold Coast will be staying out there for 2 weeks, which is in Darwin, the Northern Territory. 151 favourites are the Doggies. Minus 11.5 is the line. Over under 152.5.
The Doggies moved to 6th. So they've got their few wins under the belt. They've been playing decent footy, and this Gold Coast Suns side, still missing Took Miller. They competed against Brisbane for a little bit of the time, but travelling over
3 quarters, they
travelling over to TIO up in Darwin. The Doggies, how are they going to handle it as well? Their midfield needs to be nice and clean in the humidity up there, I imagine. So I'm just staying away solely because this is in Darwin. So I'm not going to touch this one at all. So you like the value, so let's talk about your Gold Coast.
I do like the value. Just in not only the weather conditions, it's going to be hot, it's going to be stinking hot, it's going to be humid, it's going to be probably a ground ball sort of game. The conditions aren't always good. It's either absolutely pissing down with rain and humid as anything, or it's just humid as anything and dry, and the conditions is really sucked out of it. So I think that playing in those sort of conditions sort of suit the Gold Coast Suns. They've played up there 5 times over the last couple of years, and they've split the difference. So they've beaten North Melbourne, Hawthorn, 4 times over last year. So beat Hawthorn and North Melbourne, sort of some bottom dwellers.
I was going to say, there's a draw in there.
And Carlton and Western Bulldogs, they have been competitive, but they've lost. So I like the value in. I think the odds should be a lot closer. I think it probably should be sitting probably about $2.10, $2 maybe, even probably a bit of a pick'em. But the Western Bulldogs form, as I spoke about last week, has been a little bit inflated with who they've played. They took on Adelaide. We spoke earlier about them being a team strong at home, but a different person away from the home. So
and you took them on last week.
I did. And you know what? And I've adjusted that. So in saying that, I recognise that they're a team that plays well at home. The Western Bulldogs, adjusting that sort of that philosophy and adjusting. You don't just stick with your initial thoughts of thinking a team's going to be amazing. Otherwise, you and I'd be backing Richmond every single week. Yeah, so you adjust your form along the way, so you be quiet. Gold Coast to win that with my bonus bet from last week, 255 1 unit, and hopefully I can get rid of this, Pez, because I'm not going to your boss bet again. It's a prick of a thing to use, so stay away from it.
I told you from the start.
You
did.
And I still don't even know if I'll be able to withdraw this money when I win this bet, but interested.
Doggies supporters have something to say about that, because
they always do.
The Doggies are favourites for a reason, and they've been playing good footy.
No, disagree. West Coast taking on Essendon. Speaking about good footy, this will be a good one. $10.50 outsiders are the West Coast, which is probably a little bit low after the last couple of weeks' performance. Almost 250 points in points combined in their losses in the last 2 weeks. $1.05 favourites are Essendon. Essendon fans will be filthy that they're not $1.01. This should be an absolute shoe-in. Minus 49.5 is the current line, and it's really interesting. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the over 171.5.
Yeah, about 190 of the past 2 weeks.
That's pretty close.
Gold Coast and
so that's the Perth inflation for the exchange rate with the time difference.
Yeah, all right. 10.50. This is a low time in the West Coast Eagles Footy Club, and Darling went out, didn't play last week. Oscar Allen's up there. He kicked a goal, but he only got 6 touches because the ball's just not travelling down there. They're getting the ball in the midfield. They're turning it over straight away. So Essendon, should be able to clean up across that half back line and run forward and really have an open forward line over at Optus, because Essendon do like to run on the wings. And, Stringer can be due for a good day. He might kick 5. You never know. But you just have to go near Essendon here. But $1.05, you can't really touch it. The line sits at 50.5, and that's just, spot on, because are West Coast going to show up, or are
even if they do show up, they've only got 19 blokes that can actually play.
Are Essendon going to continue to just what's the winning rate here for Bombers? You think the Bombers are going to win?
They should.
What are they going to win by?
Probably 70, 80 plus.
70, 80 plus. So 50 line would be good then. Good value.
Great value. Do you know what's even better value?
No.
Doing what I did. And just a little bit of insight into betting. Quite often punters, their casual punter will jump on Sportsbet on about a Thursday, maybe even the day of, Saturday, and look through the bets. If you want to make some money and you believe in your formula and your analytics and the teams that you're picking, those blokes that sit at the pub in September and go, I've been on St Kilda all year and I told you, won money every week. If that's what you believe and you really trust your data, then jump on early. On Sportsbet, for example, you can look into round 12. And what I did is midway through that first quarter, when Hawthorn were absolutely smashing West Coast, I jumped on at the line, put 2 units on Essendon at minus 40.5 for this week. By the end of the game, it had closed at 50.5. And now it's come in a little bit. It's at 49, I think it is, or maybe it's back to 50. But to give another example, if you think that Sydney this week, or Carlton this week, are going to get flogged by Sydney. Next week they're playing Melbourne. They're sitting 296. That'll leak out. So if you believe in something, you can get along odds early and you can take advantage of it. So I put down 2 units midway through the first quarter. At the moment, that line of 40.5, which I got for $1.90, sits at $1.54 in an alternate line. So heaps of value there, beating the bookies, and I'm going to absolutely smash it through.
Yep. And when you do that, Sauce, we might as well mention it. We have spoken to some, fans of the pod about hedges in the last few weeks when we got that hedge over the line the other week. And this is another strategy you can use with middling. And Bet365 are one that offers you 100% of the cash out before the game for most of the week, unless the odds drastically change and they change a little bit. So if you put Essendon, minus 40.5, and now it's plus 50.5, you could decide to bet the other way and try and hit both bets in the middle. And you could make your liability zero with a little bit of mathematics and putting the plus 50 on, and you could try and go, all right, Essendon are going to win between 41 and 50 points. I will win this amount. If they don't, I'll be even, or a little bit of profit either way. You can manipulate it to choose how you want to do it, or you just love the bet, you love the value, you just run with it.
And you could probably double down, at the 50 if you believe that they're going to smash them by so much. But that's where it is. Get in early. If you believe in something that's not, list dependent or matchup dependent, and you think that this team's going to smash them through, jump on as early as you can to those markets and get the best price.
And this is the other thing you need to talk about. All punters I know hate live betting. They hate it because you got to call up. Yeah,
so much value.
There's value there. So say Essendon kick the first 10 goals and they're up 60-0. You've already got them to win by 40. Mm-hmm. You could probably jump on West Coast plus 90, plus 100.
I think it'll be sitting plus 130 at that stage.
to try and middle and think, are Essendon going to just Coast, you got to be watching the game obviously to see what's happening. But there are those opportunities throughout all your bets.
Yeah, and it's the best way to do it. Stick to the stats. Look for breaks in the market. Be aware of the prices, even if you're not betting on it. So don't just go through your sports bet or your tab or whatever and just hit buttons because it's a low price. Do your homework, and that's great advice. The live betting is great, especially if you believe something's going to win. And they're just, like NBA betting is the perfect one for that. The first quarter they go down by 10, but you still believe before the game that they were going to win. Unless they're playing horrendous basketball, jump on the plus or the minus the next quarter.
How many blowouts are there in the NBA 20 plus?
Never ever.
Yeah, because
unless
they say
it's the NBA finals.
Let's just keep it close. Let's just keep it close.
All right, speaking of keeping it close, I'm really surprised in how close in odds these two teams are. Richmond taking on Port Adelaide. Richmond at home, $2.05, $1.80. Favourites are Port Adelaide, -2.5 is the line, over under 167.5. I was talking to you about this before, and I'm surprised that you're not all over this game. But you said that you were steering clear of it. You're not sure what to do.
Yeah, well, Port Adelaide looked value at $1.85 they were earlier in the week against the Richmond. This is before the Damien Hardwick news, and with the Damien Hardwick news, they've only come in to $1.80. Like, it just seems a little bit fishy to me at the moment, and I don't know the reason why. Port Adelaide, got flogged against Collingwood by 70-plus points at the MCG, so is it something to do with the ground, how they're going to play? Are Richmond going to, fire up for a new coach? We usually have the interim coach or the person that comes in does really well for the first few weeks because the players, are loosened off their shoulders, but this isn't a situation like that because Damien Hardwick's called it early. He wasn't on the outskirts and he wasn't, he didn't lose the players like coaches usually do. So I don't know how to read it, which is why I'm just going to leave it.
Don't know how to read it, so I'm going to leave it. No, a little bit of a poet there. I love Port Adelaide's value in this. I spoke last week against Melbourne about all the stats and the reasons why I loved them. I said, they're top 5 in offense and defense. They're one of the only clubs to be able to doing that. And generally, if you're a premiership favourite or you're a premiership contender at the end, you're top 5 in offense and defense. And the only team doing it at the moment. So that is, a pretty big tip for me. If you look at them competing against, recency bias, well, the recent teams that they've played, they played Essendon. Richmond just played Essendon, and Port Adelaide should have thumped them. They should have absolutely mauled them. Their inaccuracy kept them in the game, but realistically, they controlled that. On the weekend, Richmond should have controlled Essendon, and we had the narrative spun around and flipped on its head. They've also lost to Gold Coast recently in a pretty disgusting performance, and I'm a bit surprised there wasn't more criticism about Hardwick then. I love Port Adelaide at $1.80. I've gone the biggest bet of the year, 3 units on Port Adelaide at $1.80.
Just straight up.
Straight up. I talked about I talked about it before. Blue bet.
12 up promo.
12 up promo. I think this is. Money for VBs. This one. This is a big. It's not even a big call because I think it's common sense. They've won the last 6 in a row. They're top 5 in both categories, offense and defense. Richmond, there's a reason that he's walked away earliest because there's something else going on. If he saw this as a potential victory to kickstart, then he would have stayed around. Jump on this one. 3 units.
Yeah. If you want to make that call and you're confident enough, you obviously are with putting your hard earned there. So best of luck with that one. And another big game on a Sunday again to Collingwood, which surprises me.
It surprises me the odds in this one that the shortest of the round is Collingwood at $1.04, but North Melbourne, after being a lot more impressive than West Coast, are sitting at $11 outsiders. So they're really dominating that Sunday time slot at the moment. That 3:20, that prime time TV. The line screams -53.5, and that probably will go out a little bit further. Over 160.5 is the line. This is pretty stock standard sort of result. You think Collingwood for a pretty easy victory?
Yeah, well, Collingwood to win. The only factor is this is at Marvel Stadium and not at the MCG where they played GWS the other week. You'd think you get more North fans to the G than Giants fans, but
North fans don't go to North games. They're not going to an away game.
Oh, that's just the fixture. But Giants fans are non-existent, so I don't know what you want to do there. But Collingwood, Marvel should get the win easily, but the line is absolutely huge. North, they had a couple of players play really good games last week. Bailey Scott, Todd Goldstein in the ruck. Nick Larkey came up and had 14 disposals, kicked a couple of snags as well. So I'm going to boost the plus here for North Melbourne. I'm going to go.
Be cheering for North Melbourne.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the lads. Same game multi for the North fans out there. Plus 17.5. Collingwood, same thing with Melbourne, really. Like, they could have really put Carlton away on the weekend, but they just sat there, 28-point win, go from that. So I think North can, kick a bit of a score, which is why I've gone over 136.5 as well and paired that up with the under. I'm going to try and hit the middle, 60-point middle here with under 196.5 points. So I don't think it's going to be monstrous scoring, but I don't think it's going to be extremely low either. Somewhere in the middle, North plus 70.5, $2.03 with lads.
Okay. I'm probably as shocked as a lot of the podcasters. I think anyone driving to work just crashed their car because you are going to be supporting North Melbourne this weekend for them to stay close.
Don't give a shit if they win or not, but as long as they don't lose by 71 or more.
I hate this game. I think there's no value in it. I'm not going to watch it. I'm probably not even. I'm going to turn all my notifications off. No, I probably will watch it, actually. I'll probably watch it. Might even go. I just don't see there to be any value in this. The minus 53.5, sorry, the plus 53.5 to me is quite surprising that it's as high as it is, because I totally agree. I don't think Collingwood really put sides away. And, North Melbourne, whilst they are not very good, they're still going to be competitive throughout all
some
parts
of the game, please.
Well, no, but they're going to be competitive through all parts of the game. Whereas Collingwood will do what they need to do in the first half, put the cues in the rack, and then North Melbourne will probably climb back. So there's probably value in 53.5, but for me, no, thank you.
Well, the next game, we spoke about Adelaide earlier and playing away from home, but then playing at home at Adelaide Oval against the Lions.
Yeah, I'll go through the game and hear your thoughts about this one. 2.12 favourite outsiders are Adelaide, playing at home, as we said, at Adelaide Oval. Brisbane outsiders $1.73. Minus 4.5 is the line. Over under 160.5. Interested to hear your thoughts about this one. They definitely look two different teams, Adelaide, when they're playing at home, when they're playing away. But Brisbane this year, one of their downfalls over the last 5 years has been winning away from home. They seem to have sort of snapped that trend, only losing one this year away from home, otherwise controlling teams on the road.
Yeah, well, lost definitely a couple away from home. They lost to Port Adelaide early days, round one, and they did lose to the Doggies.
Doggies
at Marvel as well. So there's at least two there.
No, that's not an away game because they're Fitzroy, so it's in Victoria.
You can piss off and clutch at straws all you want. This is a fishy line. I'm not going to touch the head-to-head because I don't know how Adelaide are going to come out. If you're confident that Adelaide are going to kick the ball the way they do at Adelaide Oval against a couple of other clubs, and the way Brisbane performed against Port Adelaide earlier, yeah, sure, go for your life with the 12-up promo, but I don't think a result is going to be in mine. I do want to put a same-game multi in this because I do like the Brisbane players for disposals, and I don't mind the Adelaide players for disposals as well. So I might be able to put something together for the Sunday afternoon. We'll see how the round pans out, but we'll put that out on either Twitter or Instagram. Sauce at Behind the Bound.
You can do that, exactly. I'm not confident in this one, but I'm backing the metrics. I said Brisbane is the team to beat this year. I love the way that they're playing. I don't see any weak links along their side. If you look at teams when they're playing well and teams that win premierships, generally their VFL sides and their second sides are doing it. Their second sides are sitting top of the ladder, haven't had a loss all year. There's a couple of those regular players that have been in Brisbane that can't get a look in. They've been playing amazing football. I'm a little worried about them playing Adelaide, being a team that we just spoke about being, Jekyll and Hyde away from home. But Brisbane to win, Brisbane plus 28.5, and I've gone the over 164.5. Both these teams pretty high scoring. Adelaide at home generally get a pretty high sort of scoring team. I've made the line a little bit smaller, 164.5. I think that should go pretty much over. 2 units, 243 with tab. 1 leg fails, money back.
There you go. And that concludes round 11. Our bets we've placed on Twitter. We've got a Google Doc up there so you can have a look at what's placed there. We may place some live bets throughout the week, which go up there as well before the games. So keep an eye on that if you would like. Cheeky?
Would I like a cheeky, or have I got a cheeky?
What do you got?
I don't really have anything. You could just take any of my bets and...
It's pretty cheeky.
They'd be pretty cheeky.
Well, I do have a multi in there that I'm going to
hear cheeky.
That I'm going to fire. It's not cheeky at all. It's just a builder, just a bankroll builder here. So
bankroll builder.
Yeah.
Look at you getting all creative.
St Kilda to win the Melbourne Fremantle game. Fremantle scoring higher, over 128.5. So these are all alternate overs. Geelong GWS game, over 139.5. Geelong might nearly do that themselves. Richmond, Port Adelaide over 138.5, and Adelaide, Brisbane over 137.5. You've got the over 164 there. $1.84. Put that little multi together to try and build it up.
Oh, that's it. Try to build it up.
That's it. Just build a build some units up.
A bankroll builder.
Yeah, something like that.
Very,
you got a bankroll. You want to build it.
Oh, thank you for explaining those three words to me.
Well,
Builder.
you're questioning it for some unknown reason.
I wasn't questioning. I was saying it's a good little name. I was giving you props for once in your life. I was saying it's a good job. Good job. I'm sorry you're not used to hearing good feedback because you bet so poorly every other week. But well done. Well done, Pez.
It's a running joke. Huh? You bet poorly when we're up and about.
Banter is part of the bees in a betting podcast. But I guess the only sort of thing that you could jump on for a cheeky for me, minus 81.5 Essendon, $5.10, and that's the $5 mark. That doesn't go up as high as I'd like to, but 99.5 at $11.50. It's probably value too. 3 weeks and a 100-point loss. That'd be
$11.50 for 100 plus.
Yeah,
at home. That'd be nearly the end of the club, wouldn't it? Surely.
Well, it's interesting. If this game's played in Melbourne at Marvel, the odds are completely different, aren't they? Like I know they're sitting pretty, $10.50 and $10.05. But if that's swapped around, Essendon at $1.02, West Coast at what, $16
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so like I think that if you're looking at talent alone, then that should be. Talent alone. We're talking about Essendon. No talent there.
Yeah. End on your favourite club, the Bombers, and we'll look forward to round 11. So jump all over the socials at Behind the Bound, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of that. I've been Pez. Peace out.
I'm still Sauce. We'll catch up next time, guys.
Now you're gone.